a way that you can kind of give yourself a little bit of reprieve is to just say, like, lower the barrier of entry, like lower it a lot. It's just a way different ball game when you do things that way. If you plan for a little, you'll end up doing way more.
Let's say you work from home and you're typically seated, maybe you take some walks, but you just have a goal of getting 10 reps of something in with the kettlebell every single hour that you're working. We can see how this volume could easily add up, even though it's not exercise volume, just getting the blood moving, but you're working whatever specific tissue. You see how this could really make a sizable difference.
If I come here and I'm like, well, I want to drag the sled and I want it to be pretty heavy, and then I want to do box squats, that's going to be a much longer workout. You're going to have to kind of sparse out. There'll be certain times where when you do have the time, it would be a good idea for you to set something up a little bit. Maybe set up a circuit or set up something that you think would be more fun and exciting. And on other days, you don't really have time for that. You're going to have to get to things that have a lower barrier of entry. All right, well, today, I think we should talk about how to live a really long time and be jacked.
Yeah, no, but like, seriously, that's important because most of us are just trying to think about being jacked right now, but you want to be jacked when you're 80?
But also even having fun while doing it.
Huge.
Underestimated. Have a good time while you're doing it. Maybe there's, like, I'd imagine most people probably had fun, like jumping, running, skipping, throwing. Remember, like, just skipping rocks, at like a lake or something like that, or jumping into puddles. You tend to, like, not want to do any of those things. You get older, you're like, I'm going to get all wet. And obviously there's maybe some discretion you got to use, especially if you haven't jumped in a long time. You might hurt yourself, you might slip. Yeah. So you do need to pay attention. But I had some friends that were asking me about jumping more recently, and I just shot like a quick video. I was like, oh, you just, jump on 2 feet, just a little tiny, like whatever way you can get yourself off the ground. Maybe you got to use your arms. And then there's progressions that you can make from there. You can jump off of 2 feet and land on 1 foot. You can do what you were doing in the gym where you're jumping on, 1 foot the whole time. You're kind of like hopping, I guess you'd say. And these things are like, I think we recognize how powerful they are for sport, but then for some reason, once someone gets out of sport, it's like not used anymore.
Yeah.
And I saw a video not too long ago of a guy at a hospital, and they were trying to get him to skip. And I think they were like legitimately just kind of seeing where his brain was at and his body and his function at his age. And he started laughing at himself, and he just tried, and he did like this little weird like dance. He couldn't, connect the brain to the body to like get himself to skip.
Yeah.
And, some of the context of the post was, hey, this would be great capacity to keep forever.
Yeah.
How hard is it to keep skipping around for as long as you possibly can? That's probably not that hard if you participate in it, if you do it here and there.
Who was the strongman Nick Best? Okay, I'm bringing up his name real quick, but I do want to mention, we're going to give you guys some really cool tools within this episode to kind of make fitness an easier thing in 2025, especially if you've been struggling to keep a workout habit and get to the gym. We're going to give you a lot of good stuff later in this episode. But
you can get all this stuff off Nsima's site. He's going to give them to you guys for free.
You can get some of the stuff off my site if you want to, thestronghuman.store. But now, what I was going to say was Nick Best gave a really good example of jumping, because Nick is someone that he's a legendary strongman, but he's also like close to his 60s, heavy as hell, and still jump ropes all the time. And the main reason why he's able to jump rope all the time is because he built the skill and just never really stopped doing it.
Big boy.
He's big. I think the reason why I say that too is because bigger people give them the excuse of like, it's too much weight moving around, and but Nick Best can do it, right? And he's also obviously he's an athlete who lifts a lot of stuff. But the thing is even if you're a heavier person, you can slowly get back that ability to jump. And I want to underline another thing you mentioned as far as the play aspect of things. You're going to notice that a lot of the things we talk about, I think, will fall in line with that idea of play, because kids play. And one thing I notice is adults, when it comes to fitness, the things that we generally do, many of us don't have fun doing them. It's like they feel like work. They feel like, oh God, I got to go do this again. And you get done and you feel beat up. And it's like, it's not fun. But one thing is, how can you make your fitness practice feel like childish play and not looking negatively about the aspect of it being childish play?
It can be a huge decision to say, I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to give myself an extra 2 hours so that I can run or sprint and, do some of these and warm up and cool down. Allow for an hour of time for you to get yourself situated, organized, so that you can go do that thing before work. It's a big deal, and you might be excited about it. And the night before, you're thinking about it. Maybe you jot down a couple ideas. You're like, oh yeah, it'd be cool if I did, 5 40-yard dashes and a couple, backwards runs or something. I don't know. You come up with some sort of plan or scheme, right? Mm-hmm. But then you wake up the next day, and then for some reason you're talking yourself out of it. And you might find yourself talking yourself out of it for a while, and you might keep going back and forth all the way to the point where now you don't have time to go do the thing that you said you wanted to do. That happens to me quite often still. And, I've been exercising forever. I love it for the most part. But there are certain things about it that you don't always want to do, or certain aspects of it you don't always want to get to. Mm-hmm. So then you tend to procrastinate. And I find myself doing things I don't normally do, like take out the garbage or wash the dishes or do anything to help my wife. I'll do that just to kind of like burn time, to be like, oh, look at that. I didn't quite have the time to do the thing that I really wanted to do. And I think this is pretty common and pretty normal, but a great way to distract yourself away from that is to have, I do understand that sometimes you do have to follow like a particular protocol. I get it. And can be a good thing to adopt, because that could help with your mental strength over time, for you to say, I'm doing this particular workout this particular way at this particular time. That all makes a lot of sense. But a way that you can kind of give yourself a little bit of reprieve is to just say, like, lower the barrier of entry, like lower it a lot. Let's say you were going to go to the track and you were like, I'm going to do a couple 800s today. Well, that's like a real workout. Like that's brutal. And maybe you hate that. But maybe instead of skipping the track altogether and just never getting back the speed that you wanted or whatever, maybe you just say, I'm going to go on a walk. And if I feel pretty good, I got pretty good energy, I'm feeling the music or feeling the podcast I'm listening to, maybe I'll take off a little bit. Maybe I'll jump. Maybe I'll, in that park, maybe I'll jump up on that table a couple times, or maybe I'll do some sprints. It's just a way different ball game when you do things that way. And what you'll find is, if you plan for a little, you'll end up doing way more.
Yeah.
So if you're like, you know what, I'm going to make sure I at least get in, a 20-minute walk. You're on the 20-minute every single time, something more will happen rather than the opposite. Rather than you saying that you're going to do a lot and then you falling short of it, you get the reverse effect. And when you get that, you get a lot of momentum. So I would recommend for people just to try to change their tune, change their perspective a little bit.
There's a really good video that you found, Mark. I think it's perfect right now to give people a visual on this. This is amazing.
Really understand Stephen Jepson, you have to go back about 65 years to the day he said,
"Hey, Mom, there's nothing to do." And my mother said, "Son, your bed needs making, the lawn needs mowing, and the trash needs carrying out."
From that moment forward, he has never needed anyone or anything to amuse himself. Now in his early 70s, he rides his elliptical bike in the street and spends his days walking slack ropes, throwing knives, and jumping barefooted from rock to rock to rock to rock.
Yeah.
Stephen believes the key to a long and healthy life is play. He has a simple philosophy that he calls never leave the playground, and to prove it, he's turned his property into a personal playground where he invents ways to keep his body and mind agile.
My memory has become absolutely intense since beginning to do all this stuff. That's what this does. It makes your memory better. It makes you feel just absolutely juiced and jazzed and revitalized.
Huh. My memory is absolutely intense.
I thought he was making fun of his mom's voice, but then like, oh wait, that's your voice.
Nah, just play.
Hey. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man, to be able to, some of these things are kind of like a skill set. Like getting on a skateboard is a little bit of a skill, right? But once you learn something like that, then it is a lot of fun, and it can be play.
Yeah,
100%.
But there's a book that I went through recently. It's literally called Play, and an aspect of it was talking about how when adults reach when people reach adulthood, there's like a marked decrease in play type activity. But then there also tends to be a marked decrease in general movement variability. And they tend to notice that also as people get all older, things like Alzheimer's, dementia are more likely to happen to people who don't have any type of play activity versus people who do. And it makes you wonder, it's like a lot of people generally look down on adults who play. They don't think it's a very adult thing to do. It's like, nah, you go to work, you do your taxes, you go to sleep, you have your child responsibilities. It's like, who has time to play? But the thing is like, play can probably be the thing that will keep a level of longevity for you for the rest of your life. And so the question is, how can we inject play into our daily activity, right? How can we figure out how to do that? And there's a lot of ways for us to do that.
And one person's view of something that might be playful might be like way too hard for somebody else.
True.
I don't know what made this pop into my head, but it's that old video of Bill Gates jumping over a chair. You guys ever seen that video before?
I think find it.
I think I may have.
It is absolutely ridiculous. But, for one person, they might look at the chair and be like, that's not playing around for me. That's like something I would have to work for, train for. While another person, might not want to throw a baseball or football because they have like a shoulder injury or something.
I don't know if this is it, but
Oh yeah, here we go. Boom, nailed it.
Oh,
Yo,
let's go,
actually, that was solid.
He's got some bounce.
dude.
Let's go, Bill.
I think everybody was hoping he wiped out.
Yeah. Hey, there's Josh Settling. But I think we mentioned it in so many episodes, but an easy thing that can feel like play and can improve coordination is rope flow. We talked about that practice. We won't talk about it too long, but it's one of those things that, I put a rope in my mom's hands. She starts laughing and smiling. I ask her why. She's like, I feel like I'm playing. And she hasn't played in a long time, right? And there are many practices like that. But the reason why I think something like that and more things we're going to talk about is cool is because, a lot of people have a tendency to now start just like taking a break and doing 5 minutes of it and putting it down. You can just get 5 minutes of random play anywhere and keep doing what you're doing. That's huge, right? So what else can we do that can just give us some good movement and then give us a level of play maybe?
Maybe you used to chuck around a football, or maybe you used to kick around a soccer ball. There's really no reason why we can't do some of this stuff still. And you could probably just do it outside of your house. Probably just like throw the ball up in the air and catch it yourself. You don't even necessarily need anybody else. I mean, I remember I used to chuck my football up on my roof all the time. It would roll down. I'd catch it. I haven't done something like that in a long time, but that would probably be a lot of fun. I think it was a couple months ago when the weather was a little nicer. I was in Bodega Bay with my brother and we were throwing around a football. And we're throwing it around. We're both like bitching a little bit. We're like, oh man, it's like hard to kind of, to do. And we're making some of the kids that we're hanging out with, we're making them run some run some patterns and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. It was cool. But like, especially once we threw the ball like 5-6 times each, it's like then you get warmed up and then it gets to be more fun. And then you actually find yourself, going after the ball rather than just like standing there and just watching it like land in the sand and stuff like that. And so, what are the things that you used to like to do? Maybe it is like, ride your bike or something like that, but why not think about that? Why not entertain that? Did you used to play a sport? And even again, if it's a sport like volleyball where there's kind of a setup to it, there's no rule saying that you have to get like a bunch of people to play that. You can just hit the ball up against the wall and do that over and over. And, it can be fun. You might have to kind of reconnect with the skill set of being able to do it well in order for it to get more fun. But it's something everyone should give a shot to.
And another thing I'll mention is like, we'll talk probably more about this too. I think trying to get yourself a very light type of sandbag. I think that would actually be beneficial because one goal that I have for myself and then a goal that I think I have for everybody that I work with too is this idea of having uninhibited movement, meaning that you can go up to an object and you can lift it without thinking about it, right? You just pick it up and lift, right? Someone left a funny comment on actually, Andrew, can you go to my Instagram and pull this video up of me throwing a sandbag around? It's a training sandbag. It's one of my most recent videos on my Instagram. And the reason why I'm laughing is because he mentioned, is this how people try to act like manual laborers now? And in my mind, I was like, yeah, Yeah, because I think that, manual laborers probably don't have the most fun doing their job, right? But what they're doing is like very intelligent. One aspect I've noticed is whenever I've rolled with a manual laborer, they tend to be some of the strongest people. They're stronger than the bodybuilders and the powerlifters I roll with, because they're just very good at picking up things up without thinking about it.
Strong ass hands.
Yeah. So one thing that I think would be beneficial for people is like having a light sandbag somewhere where it's like maybe it's in your office and maybe you keep one at home. And I keep sandbags almost everywhere because I just want to be able to run up to it, throw it up, pick it up, mog it, right, without thinking about it. And an aspect of that is not having it be so heavy where like you have to walk up and you're like, brace and pick it up, but you just walk up and you get used to picking something up, because that thing over time, you can make it heavier and heavier and heavier. And now you can like pick up a 100-pound object or a 120-pound, and you can just not think about it without any inhibition, right? I think that's the goal, because as you get older, you don't want to have to think about doing physical things. You want those things to just come naturally to you. And they only come naturally if you keep things in your environment that force you to pick them up, right?
And you don't need a gym for some of this stuff. I mean, you just, purchase it yourself, and you have it, in your garage or in your backyard. You got things like med balls. You got things like sandbags. And there's all kinds of different types of sandbags. There's kind of the strongman style sandbag that you fill up with a bunch of sand and you close it up, and it's basically just a bag of sand. But there's some of them that have handles on them, have different attachments. And then that allows you it just gives you other options. I know Rogue Fitness makes one that has like a pretty good sized handle on one side of it. And you can still pick it up as if it's like a stone or any of those other kind of things. But it almost looks like those things that they throw over the bar in like
Strongman.
In like strongman and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's one called Sandbell.
That's probably it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, something like that. And some of these things, they're not free. They're going to be a little pricey, but you can fill them up with appropriate amounts of sand for you. And how many of them do you really need? You probably don't need a lot of different types, but you'd also be surprised at like what it's training. When you get like a med ball and you start chucking a med ball around, you're training these explosive movements that we're not normally getting from the gym. It's really rare for us to get that from squats and deadlifts and bench presses. Now, we could do that if we, did 10 sets of 3 reps and did them as explosively as possible. We could perhaps mimic some of the things that we'd get from like a medicine ball. But there's so much other value. And I'm fortunate that we have, quite a few med balls. But if you ever just take all the med balls that we have here and just try to throw all of them, you'll be toast. Just after like one round of throwing. If you have 3, 4, 5 of them, it will really make a big difference. But now you're also getting in like rotational work, and you're having an opportunity to do some stuff that you probably aren't normally doing in the gym. You're getting some rotational work in. And I find that with these types of weights that because it's not a 600-pound deadlift, it's like a 200-pound sandbag or a 100-pound sandbag. I'm not saying that you could just pick it up whatever old way you want. You can definitely get hurt, so you should always be cautious. However, the rules for picking up a sandbag are way different than the rules that you might have for picking up a regular deadlift. And what we've seen with a lot of people over the years from deadlifting, benching, squatting is it creates someone that ends up being pretty tight, and their movement patterns get to be pretty rough. And the video that you made, which is really well done, by the way, the YouTube video that you made where you're like, I don't know if I really want to move around like some of these other guys or move around some of the way that I even used to from bodybuilding. But with the strongman guys, there's a lot of strongman guys that move pretty damn well. You can kind of be like, oh, well, maybe there's some cool stuff to strongman. And that's because they're using a lot of different apparatus, a lot of different pieces of equipment, attacking things from many different angles, and there's more movement than just like a static movement in strongman.
What you mentioned there is huge though. Like the way, okay, so obviously there's a classical way to pick up a sandbag, a heavy sandbag, but that's why it's a good idea. Like those sandbells are great. Those sandbells are great because I think the heaviest one they have is 50 pounds, right? But they have lighter, but how many different ways can you grab and pick up the sandbell and put it on your shoulder, or maybe pick it up and throw it? And I think the best way to play around with that is with lighter load, not with a load that you're feeling apprehensive about. Like you might go up to 100 and be like, Okay, then pick that up in a classical way, but with the lighter load, around your back, pick it up, right? Like you pick it up in these different ways with the different grips, and kind of see if your body can adapt, because I think that gives you the most amount of range with your body as you get older. I mean, not everyone does a martial art, but I think jiu-jitsu is something where there's not one way to move when you're dealing with another person. You have to learn how to move in variable ways. And we can bring that idea into the way we lift with these implements, because again, it's not like a standard barbell where there is a way that you want to lift that bell or that barbell. With the sandbag, even with the training sandbag too, like my training sandbag has 3 handles, but I'll sometimes grab it by its body instead so that I can really get my grip working and squeezing, and then I lift it, because you'll feel some different stimulus when you do it that way. So when you're lifting some of these things, use a slightly lighter load so you can lift it in a different way and get a different type of stimulus for your body.
I think this is probably true for both of us. You're thinking of some of these things as you're picking out exercise selection for yourself for a particular day. Right? You're considerate of these things. So I was just using, what's the bar that's from Functional Patterns? What's that thing called?
The RG bar.
The RG bar. So I was using the RG bar the other day, and I've been having a little bit of a weird time doing like straight tricep movement, because a lot of the stuff just kind of dumps into the elbow, and I've been working on some of that forearm stuff recently, and so that area is pretty taxed. I need to work on that and get that area to be stronger. But kind of as I'm going through that, I have a little bit of pain in the elbow. I know, fuck my elbow. But what I noticed with that bar is I can get great work in on the tricep, because I can twist the bar, I can pull one side, and I can push on the other. And there was zero pain in the tricep, zero pain through the chest and shoulder, but still a really good amount of work in that tricep area. So this is why it's a good idea to try to find different things in your training to where you can kind of play around with it. I realize that not everyone's going to love all the stuff we're talking about. They're going to be like, well, I don't want to throw a med ball. Well, maybe that might be okay, but maybe you throw a football instead, or maybe you throw a baseball instead. You should probably be working on throwing something at some point to get some of that, get some of that input into your system. So that I'm looking at a lot of these things too. When I'm training, I'm thinking of, like, if I'm doing, say, like a regular curl, I got no problem doing a regular curl, because I'm like, well, this is okay, it's isolation, right? And I know some people now are like against isolation, but I'm like, this is working the tendons, the ligaments, and it's also just fun to have nice arms, fun to have big arms, fun to have powerful arms, get a pump, get the veins going and all that good stuff. And so it's
not functional.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, right? But like, where is its function? It's like, I don't really know, but again, it's just kind of fun to do and fun to have. But
function is having big arms and you don't. That's the function.
Yeah. That's one part.
So accurate. Oh my God. I've never heard a more bigger truth than that. That's so good.
That is an amazing and huge part of it.
Yeah.
Is just that you got this ability to like build them out, and maybe somebody else doesn't. And it's fun for you. But I remember when Stan Efferding came and trained with us, and a couple guys were looking at him deadlifting, and everybody was jealous of him because he came in and he looked better than everybody and lifted more than everybody, killed everybody, and he was rich. We're like, Jesus, what's this guy's deal? This guy sucks. And he talked shit, even worse. But when he went to do a deadlift, his like elbows were kind of bent. And I remember a couple of guys like, he's going to blow a bicep. I was like, he's going to blow up that bicep? I was like, I do not think so. Like, have you ever seen, it's not even the bicep. It's like the connection from the bicep to the forearm on Stan.
Yeah.
It was just obscene. You're like,
I've never seen it up close.
You're like, that looks anchored in there pretty good. I don't think anything's going to happen to him on that.
His brachialis or
and
whatever.
And a lot of that had to do with, some of the stuff from bodybuilding. Like, so it was functional for him in powerlifting.
That's awesome. And when we had, Steve Cotter?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
It kind of like sparked my interest with kettlebells again. And so I do have a 35 pounder. And again, that's like kind of like for men, that's like, oh, you start there. But I found it to kind of wreck me too easily.
Like 12 kgs.
So then I asked him, like, hey, dude, like I didn't want to be a bitch, but I'm like, so for someone that's brand new to kettlebells, would the 12 kg be good? He's like, no, it's a perfect starting point. I'm like, okay. And then he happens to have that his dope series one, right? So That's something that I want to add. It's something just that I can just walk into my garage and just pick up, do a couple swings, and then like get back to work or something. Because like everything that I have right now, you kind of have to set something up. And it's like, okay, now I'm understanding like this whole lower the barrier. Because I'm thinking, what's in my garage? How low can the barrier get? It's like, well, actually, you can make it even lower. And then something I just thought about with like the sand bells, I just remembered people doing like push-ups and then like throwing them as they're planking, you know, so like they have it under them, they grab it, they throw it to the other side, and they grab it. It's just, dude, that is a brutal like exercise. Something that I just remembered right now from back when I was like really following everything that On It was doing, because they used to sell them back in the day.
Yeah.
But they
you talking about sandbells or training sandbags?
So sandbells.
Sandbells. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but the ones that they used to have, they had like little like BBs or something inside them. They're like little like metal balls inside of them.
Okay.
But yeah, so anyway, kettlebells. Yeah, I think that's something that it's pretty easy for everyone to just get a hold of and kind of just have just sitting on the corner. You've talked about this for years at this point. And it's just something that looks like it's going to be a lot of fun for me. So it's just something I want to add. Yeah,
just sitting there. It's preloaded, right?
Yeah.
So there's not anything else to do with it. I think back to some of the setups that we had when we did power lift, and a lot of those setups took a lot of time, but they were worth it. They were for a very particular reason. But now I train with much different goals. And so I'd rather normally, not all the time, but normally I'd rather get to stuff where I can move through things a lot quicker. I'm going to do like an exercise where I want to, I guess, work my back a little bit more. I'll do pull-ups and I'll do like 2 back machines. There's like no setup for really any of that other than maybe loading on some plates to something. And then if I was to do shoulders, it might be the same thing. It might be like 2 selectorized machines. You just change the pin.
Yeah.
And so that workout's going to take 30 minutes. Whereas if I come here and I'm like, well, I want to drag the sled and I want it to be pretty heavy, and then I want to do box squats, that's going to be a much longer workout. And so I do understand when people are like, man, I don't know if I have time for all this stuff. You're going to have to kind of sparse out. There'll be certain times where when you do have the time, it would be a good idea for you to set something up a little bit, maybe set up a circuit or set up something that you think would be more fun and exciting. And on other days, you don't really have time for that. And you're going to have to get to things that have a lower barrier of entry. And a lot of what we're talking about here today is just trying to have stuff sort of around the house that you can grab a hold of and just utilize.
Something to think about, like, you know, because I know not everyone feels like they are physically inclined. There are certain people who maybe feel a little bit, they gravitate more towards physical aspects of fun. And some people who maybe it's not as fun for them. But, you know, when I started doing kettlebell juggling, that's when kettlebell stuff became really, really fun, throwing it around, right? But you don't have to juggle the kettlebell. Just think about how effective this could be if you had a kettlebell in your office space or at home. And let's say you work from home and you're typically seated, maybe you take some walks, but you just have a goal of getting 10 reps of something in with the kettlebell every single hour that you're working. That's 8 hours. 10 reps of something could be 10 goblet squats, could be, you know, you throw the kettlebell up and you do a press, could be whatever, right? But just 10 reps of something, that's 80 repetitions. Let's say you're working 5 days a week. Could you do that 5 days? It's 400 or more repetitions of whatever. Throughout a month, that's 1,600 extra repetitions. And 1,600 times what? 12 is something crazy. But we can see how this volume could easily add up, even though it's not exercise volume. You're just getting the blood moving, but you're working whatever specific tissue. You see how this could really make a sizable difference, and it doesn't take away anything from you because you're not having to go to a gym. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go to a gym still. You can still go to the gym, get your workout in. But this on top of that, that's partially one of the reasons why I think all of us are able to like feel good all the time, because we're always doing something to move our body. You know what I mean? That's why it's important to keep these things around. It doesn't have to be a bell. A bell is just an easy thing that you can do multiple things with. It could be a bell, could be a sandbag, could have like a mace type of thing. You could have something that just improves movement. You can have a little slant board or those slant blocks to get a little bit of balance in while you're at your desk, where you maybe could stand on that for a little bit. But just these little input movements make it so that, first off, you're improving at these movements over time. You're improving your balance. You're improving all these levels of strength. But once you get it, it's now easy to keep it. no matter how old you get, you're now able to just do things to keep it. But if you create too much of a distance between yourself and jumping and throwing objects and lifting objects, then when you need to go do it, there's so much thought, there's so much difficulty that it stresses you out, and it's not a fun experience.
And you could do stuff just even on a walk too. You can pair stuff together. You can go on a walk. You go on a walk with somebody else and you can have a football or some sort of ball that you pass back and forth. You can go on a walk by yourself with just a tennis ball and just drill that thing into the ground, maybe throw it up a little bit here and there and catch it. There's a lot of just like simple, easy things that you can do. When it comes to like, the idea of like going to the gym, I think that that's still a good idea for a lot of people because fitness might not be so like ingrained for them yet. And so for them to cut out this hour of time or for them to invest in a Peloton bike or treadmill and to say, I'm doing this like hour thing, they might have to still kind of just get into that whole entire thing. Because I think for some people, it may not be, it would be a good idea and a good start to titrate some of the things we're talking about into their day-to-day.
Yep.
But I think in order for them to make the progress, because if you're not really making good progress, you're not making progress even kind of slowly, it could be really annoying. And I could imagine, if somebody's just like doing like a little bit of weights here and there, like over time, of course, it will have a huge impact, but still keep some of the gym stuff in mind. I think it's really valuable. It's really important. But also try to find stuff that you like. It seems like there's so many people that are not exposing themselves enough to things that they like. There's a lot of different things you can do at a gym. There's a lot of different, even things you can do at home for your training. So if you like lifting or you like lifting heavy or you like more athletic stuff, just try to get yourself to get into a rhythm of doing that.
If you're someone that's taking supplements or vitamins or anything to help move the needle in terms of your health, how do you know you really need them? And the reason why I'm asking you, how do you know, is because many people don't know their levels of their testosterone, their vitamin D, all these other labs like their thyroid, and they're taking these supplements to help them function at peak performance. But that's why we've partnered with Merrick Health for such a long time now, because you can get yourself different lab panels like the Power Project panel, which is a comprehensive set of labs to help you figure out what your different levels are. And when you do figure out what your levels are, you'll be able to work with a patient care coordinator that will give you suggestions as far as nutrition optimization, supplementation, or if you're someone who's a candidate and it's necessary, hormonal optimization to help move you in the right direction so you're not playing guesswork with your body. Also, if you've already gotten your lab work done, but you just want to get a checkup, we also have a checkup panel that's made so that you can check up and make sure that everything is moving in the right direction if you've already gotten comprehensive lab work done. This is something super important that I've done for myself. I've had my mom work with Merrick. We've all worked with Merrick just to make sure that we're all moving in the right direction and we're not playing guesswork with our body. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. And at checkout, enter promo code POWERPROJECT to save 10% off any one of these panels or any lab on the entire website. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I just wanted to bring this video up real quick because mixed reality is getting pretty good.
Cool.
And I'm only bringing this up, not really saying that like, hey, everybody go get a MetaQuest thing, but like that looks like a lot of fun and it's getting her up off the couch.
Yeah.
But the reason why this would be cool is because it gamifies things.
Yeah.
So with some of the stuff we're talking about, how can people sort of like gamify some of these like pretty low-hanging fruit movements, that you can just like walk up to? Because that's what's going to get me, right? Like if I go to the kettlebell, it's like, okay, cool. I did the 10 movements that Nsima told me to do per hour or whatever, but I might kind of get bored of it. So what are some of the ways you get, like, this looks so much fun, but what are some of the ways that like people can quote gamify some of these movements to make sure they keep coming back?
Yeah. Don't watch porn on that thing. It's demonic. It's truly demonic.
Oh, no.
There's porn on there?
Yes. And it's
3 hours later.
Yeah.
This looks like,
again, gamifying stuff. There's a lot of apps and a lot of opportunity. That looks so sick playing pool on there.
so much fun. I got to rewind that.
There's a lot of different ways to gamify stuff with a lot of the apps that are out there right now. For running, There's all different kinds of apps. You can compete against other people doing like a similar loop or running in a similar area as you. The name of it's just not coming to me right at the moment, but there's a lot of apps for things like that. And then when you got Peloton, you're actually competing against people, on like a bike or on a treadmill in a class workout. You can do them live versus doing them pre-recorded or whatever, but you can get like scores on there and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I don't have this on screen anymore, but that's just, would just be fun. Dude, I would not see my family.
Yeah.
I would have too much fun.
That's wild. But yeah, no, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, you're right. I don't think necessarily that this should just replace working out in general. If it's good to still have those practices.
But it could, like it did for that older guy.
Yeah.
That guy probably had some practices that he was honed in on. Maybe he went to a gym or had a sport that he loved. Mm-hmm. And then now he plays in his backyard, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's I think that's like a key thing in terms of people being able to stay youthful, because I showed you this other guy. Can you go to Wellness Daddy's channel? Just type in
YouTube
Wellness Daddy
Instagram?
YouTube. Wellness Daddy YouTube. Because there's this other guy who is, his name, he's 62 years old. I forgot his name. We're about to see. Look for a thumbnail with a long-haired white guy with a beard or with a mustache. I think it might show his name there. But anyway, he's this guy who like has a super low biological age. He's 62, looks super young. And again, a tendency with these people, again, is just like consistent bouts of movement, right? Consistent bouts of using the body throughout the day. Because I think one of the things that really ends up wrecking people is being perfectly sedentary without variable movement all day long and then having one bout of movement. Because I can even imagine, go to like his most popular videos.
And we know this, and Brad Kern spoke.
Second one.
Yeah.
Brad Kern spoke on this as well on our show. But we know if we have really hard workouts that a lot of times our other movement will be suppressed for a while. So if we have really hard outputs, whether it be running or jujitsu, we're not going to move around as much later on.
Absolutely. And even I think about it these days too, because like I've been able to implement this stuff into my days. And I know that if I was just not doing anything and then I had to go rev myself up to do a certain high level activity, that shit wouldn't feel good. First off, again, the goal being uninhibited movement, I'd have to prepare myself, and not like warming up is bad, but there's just all of this decongesting the body, getting things loose, getting blood everywhere that would just make it more difficult for me to do those things. And again, I look at this is my personal general goal, is global uninhibited movement, meaning I don't want to have to think about doing anything. I just want my body to be able to do it, because that's what kids are able to do. Kids just they just do the shit, right? And I think if we get that ability back, inherently we are more childlike. Inherently we will have more childlike abilities, right? And the way to do that is by having things around that feed the idea of uninhibited movement. Kettlebell right there, go pick it up. Go toss it in each hand and put it down, right? Ball right there, pick it up, throw it up. Don't think about it, right? Kind of heavy sandbag, pick it up, throw it over your head. Do that without thinking initially you're going to be thinking about it, but you'll get to a point that you'll be able to not think about it when doing it. And you'll be able to do that with heavier and heavier and heavier load without thinking about it.
And we're such meatheads, we can't really think sometimes too far past, a couple of kettlebells, some weighted vests, and maybe a jump rope and things like that. But there's so many other ways. I like that you use the word gamify. We should try to talk about that a little bit more. There's so many things that can be so helpful. Call a friend and say, yo, bitch, you want to go on a run?
Yeah.
Call them up, call them out. And then maybe the next day they kick your ass in deadlifts or something like that. But if you have someone I'm not saying to hurt yourself, because it's also a nice recipe to like blow something out, but get a little competitive. Maybe, try to get into a group. There's a lot of like powerlifting gyms. There's a lot of places that you can go where people are exercising together, CrossFit, High Rocks. And there's stuff all over the internet. It seems like these people are very welcoming. It seems like these people want to have jujitsu. Like, what a great environment for exercise. What a great environment to get your workout in. If somebody was to tell me like, hey, you know what, for the rest of my life, I'm not going to really lift or do anything else. I'm just going to do jujitsu a couple times a week. I would say that sounds pretty healthy. That sounds pretty good. It would be nice if you got excited about doing something else maybe, but excuse me, if jujitsu is what you did, then you're probably getting a ton out of that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, it's real easy for us to think about, the different things to purchase to kind of put weights all around your house and stuff. But there's also this idea of competition, this idea of gamifying things. And then even on top of that, there's the idea of just making things more approachable. Like at my house, I kind of have like a tile floor type of thing. And it's hard. Mm-hmm. The ground, somebody might have a wooden floor or something like that. Buy some mats. Jason Khalipa, I think on Rogue Fitness sells a Go mat, nice and thick, like a wrestling mat. There's another type of mat called a stacked mat that we have a couple at my house. Those are amazing just to lay on it. So now, like getting down to the ground, I don't have to think about it at all. Whereas like I look at the ground, it's kind of cold. I'm like, I'm going to be a little bitch about it. And I know I'm going to be a little bitch about it. So rather than trying to have to get any energy to hype myself up to do any stretches or anything, I'll just use a little pad. The pad's going to make everything, it's going to bring everything and make everything just okay. So wherever you can, try to lower those barriers of entry. There's other just stupid meathead stuff that I have that just keeps things easy. We talk all the time about having an air fryer. An air fryer, just like your steak could be that frozen and you can throw it in the air fryer and 20 minutes later, it's amazing. It's incredible. So that cuts down on us trying to figure out how to be chefs. That cuts down on us being responsible and taking the meat out of the freezer in enough time to be able to cook it and everything like that. So any little spot that you can lower the barrier of entry. The other thing I have is my protein powder is like, it's just all right there.
Yeah.
And my wife doesn't always love that, the whole house has kind of gotten cluttered with supplements and whatever else, but the hell with her. She can always live somewhere else. That old bat.
Oh, God.
She never listened to the podcast.
Nah, she's not listening. But if she did, she'd kick my ass. But no, she's getting more and more into a lot of this stuff as well. And so it's collaborative. It's like, it's not like she's not using the protein powder and stuff as well. So it's convenient to have stuff set up a very particular way. And the more that you can do that, the easier you're going to make things for yourself.
Yeah. All right. I want to ask you guys real quick. Actually, Andrew, you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say it's also like a really cool like icebreaker conversation starter when somebody who's not aware of any of the stuff that we do. It's like, whoa, what is steak shake? There's steak inside there? Mm-hmm. It's like, literally, like this is the best tasting thing you'll ever have. Like you should check it out. And then you just kind of like, literally like break someone's beliefs and show them like, hey, like I eat very clean, but I enjoy everything I eat, And it's just like, if I had mine hidden behind a bunch of closed doors or something in a pantry somewhere, that wouldn't happen. But I have mine all like right in like the kitchen table's here, and then there's like a I don't know what the fuck you call it. It's supposed to be for like plants, but I just put all the protein powders right there, and so it's just right in front of everybody as soon as they walk in. No plants, just protein. Yeah.
I want to ask you guys, for both of you guys, what would be the activities where you feel that they don't necessarily just feel like workouts, they also feel like play? What are those activities for you?
Activity for me is just going outside in the morning. Okay. I go outside in the morning, and I haven't gone outside one time in the morning and done nothing. Mm-hmm. Every single time I go outside, I'll either walk in a circle on on the grass. I'll sometimes do stuff with the towel. I'll sometimes do stuff with the rope. Okay. I will sometimes like pick up rocks and just kind of walk back and forth. Sometimes I'll try to walk on my gravel outside. I might be outside for 6 minutes. I might be outside for 12. It just kind of depends on the day. Mm-hmm. But I just make it a habit of just getting outside. So that act alone is a great act of activity. I wouldn't even call it exercise, just a great act of activity. And it turns into exercise for me. So that's a big one for me.
Okay. Anything else? Because I want you to list out all the things that you feel like you do or play, just so we can give people a bunch of options. Because I wrote down a bunch of things, but what else do you do that feels like play, or even just fun? But like play and fun. What else do you do?
yeah, when I run and walk and stuff like that, there's usually like a lot of play involved. I'll like jump on stuff. I might sprint randomly while I'm walking. More recently, I've been jumping up and touching stuff, and that was actually kind of cool. The other day, I went to jump up and touch something. I was like, that's kind of way too high. Like, there's no chance. And then I was able to grab, like, not only touch it, but I was able to grab it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I can't jump like crazy or anything, but I'm getting closer to being able to get my fingers to the rim, which I was never a great like leaper or anything, but I used to be able to grab the rim. So that would be cool to be able to work my way back into that. In terms of other things of play, yeah, it's just all kind of running based, I think, because I'll skip, I'll run backwards. Sometimes if I go to UC Davis, I'll run on the field and I'll just cut and do different movements. And yeah, I do some throwing, I do some like med ball stuff. There's probably not a lot of other play in there for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it, and a lot of it is almost like not even habit stacking, but it's doing something with movement on top of something I'm already doing. So just for example, like out with the family, my son will go on my shoulders. And so it's like an extra like 30, 40 pounds, I don't even know how much he weighs right now, that I'm getting in, right? Like a weight vest essentially. Sitting down, watching a football game. I've mentioned this before. I have like a wrestling mat that I have in my living room. We'll unfold that and we'll just jump on that and do that sort of thing. The other thing is we have one of these. Oh. It's like I think it's just called a Gibbon board or Gibbon slackline or whatever.
Gibbon or Gibbon?
Gib like B. So
like a monkey.
Yeah, that's they have monkeys on their boards. We just have this stuff like again in the not necessarily like right in the living room because it's not that big, so it's like kind of like around the corner. We just have that just kind of laying around. And truth be told, I haven't gotten on this one that much because my balance is not good and my knees are pretty jacked up right now. But this is a lot of fun. My son likes to jump on this and then jump off of it, which is pretty cool to see him like literally jump on this dang thing and then jump right off. Because that kind of scares me to think about that because I'd be like, oh no, it's going to slip. But he has no like, again, he's a kid. He's just playing. He doesn't care about exercise. He doesn't care about falling. He doesn't care about getting hurt. He just wants to play. And so like he'll walk on it while I'm holding his hand. And he likes to get to the edge because it's like a skateboard. So it'll like teeter and it like looks like he's about to fall off, you know? And so like we do a lot of stuff like that where like as we're doing something, can we like, again, like stack something else on top of it?
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm not really doing anything other than rope flow, which to me feels like a lot of play because I like to have a lot of fun with that, especially if I can, again, mix that with some sunlight and some music and I still drink caffeine. That's just like the best way to start my day. Yeah.
I forgot about the trampoline too. I've been messing around on that
That's
too.
a lot of fun.
Is it a normal trampoline or is it like there's a difference between rebounder and trampoline, right?
Just a green rebounder, I think it was called. I got it off of Amazon.
Okay.
It's it's at my gym at my house and it's just like right there. So I just hop on there. Sometimes just in between sets and stuff. It's like too fun not to like want to jump on there.
Yeah. We mentioned a rebounder on our episode with Brad Kearns. There's this brand called Bellicon. They're apparently like the fucking Ferrari of rebounders. So if any of you guys want to get like a super high quality one, I'm going to try to get myself a Bellicon because I looked at theirs versus a lot of others. And that Wellness Daddy guy, he did a review on a bunch of rebounders and everybody's like, Bellicon's the one. Now,
because it's got spring.
it has something that makes the bounce just feel so much better.
Okay.
And I've just read that from so many different people. Now I don't have a rebounder, but I know like when I see people doing it, it looks just so fun because you end up jumping and then you're airborne for a period of time. And like, how often do you just float? Right. And then go back down? Like you can jump, but you're never floating. And that sensation, I think we can all remember doing certain things when you were younger where you're in the air. That's different. So I can't wait for that because that'll be fun along with all the jumping activity. But the different things I do that actually really do feel like play, not just like using the kettlebell because like, and I want to mention something before I mention all these things. I think that there are aspects where when you build enough skill with something, it becomes an activity that doesn't take away from you. You're able to be relaxed when doing that activity. And because you're able to be super relaxed when doing the activity, it feels relaxing. So when I say these things, understand that like it's because now these activities actually feel relaxing when I do them. So kettlebell juggling doesn't feel like work. It feels relaxing, tossing a kettlebell up, redirecting the force. It feels fun. It feels like play. Jiu-jitsu feels like play a vast majority of the time. When I roll with harder opponents, it's still fun. It's more exertion at that point. But most of the time now, jiu-jitsu is like I'm rolling with other people. It's fun. It's actually relaxing. It feels like play. Rope flow obviously feels like play. Mace flow is something that I've been getting into. And that, again, that also feels like play when like spinning that thing around and redirecting it and not really thinking. It's fun. Jumping rope at this point, doing a bit of that throughout the day also is just fun because I'm hopping around. So you don't necessarily need a rope to do it, but I'm hopping around and it's like I do it and I just feel like it doesn't necessarily feel like work. So all of these physical activities for me don't feel like work. It just feels, actually, when I do those things, I feel better when I do them and after I do them. It doesn't feel like it took anything from me. And I think most of the time when we're talking about play, it doesn't mean that you can't play hard with something, right? But when I think about doing certain things in the gym, like I just did a few squats in there right now, and like even when I do landmine stuff, those feel like a workout. They don't necessarily feel like play. But the things I just listed off right now, they truly feel like play, right? And I don't think anything's wrong with working out, but that's just something when you've developed a skill in those things, they can just feel fun.
When you're thinking about some of these things, just understand that there's never too little of an input, whether it be the amount of time you can devote to it, the intensity, the volume, the duration, any of it. If you got on the ground and did one push-up, you got on the ground and did one push-up. I think, as you're talking about something like the landmine, I could see, like if you drive here to the gym, a 20-minute something drive, you're thinking landmine, kettlebells, so that's a very particular mindset, right?
Yeah.
But imagine you're coming to the gym, no expectation at all to work out. And then Andrew and I tell you, the podcast for today is canceled. The guest is not coming in. And you just look around, you're like, I'm going to try that heavier kettlebell today. I haven't really messed around with that bigger one. Then you have the greatest workout, right? All of a sudden. And so I think trying to keep the idea of play in mind as much as you can.
Yeah, man.
I think that's what helped me survive, playing football. Probably the same thing for you with soccer. Every practice started out with it's kind of slow. Maybe the coach yelled at you a little bit and wanted you to run or whatever. But for the most part, it's like you were having fun with your friends, kicking the ball around, talking a little trash, maybe talking about what you're going to do after the practice. And then practice picks up. And then it goes from play to oh shit, now it's getting pretty serious. A lot of drills, a lot of boring stuff that no one really wants to do. But then they go back to the game again. Yeah. And you get to play the game again.
Yeah.
And the same thing was true with me for football. And I loved it. I never missed any practices or anything because if it was only the drills and if it wasn't that much play, I wouldn't have showed up. I would have missed probably a lot of practices. But there was enough gamifying of the whole situation to where I was like, this is just too much fun to ever miss this.
That's why something like rope flow between sets of movement actually feels really that's what I do between sets of squats and those other movements that I do. I'll do rope flow in between, not just because I feel a decompressive effect, but it also just gets my body feeling it's fun again. You know what I mean? And not like I don't have fun doing these other exercises. But just like you said, if you can figure out a way to make your exercise fun too when you're actually doing your workout. If you're someone, because I know not everyone enjoys exercise, not everyone enjoys working out, but try to think about that. How can you make it something that you enjoy? And if other people aren't doing it, don't give a fuck about that. Just add in stuff that you enjoy to your workout, even if it's not, people don't think it's useful. Just add it in.
And even if it is, I was mentioning earlier how some of the setups I had when I was powerlifting, they took longer. Sometimes using chains or bands, and you need a particular setup, and sometimes you needed a couple people to work out with, so it was safer. So you had a spot on each side, and you had someone running the monolift, and But that style of workout was so much fun. So if you're listening to some of this and you're not like vibing with every single thing that we're talking about, because we're talking about a mace or a kettlebell, just apply whatever thing is that you like. That's what we're asking you to do. What are the things that you like to do? Obviously, again, I'd love to lower the barrier of entry so that people don't have to go through so many things to get a particular outcome. But sometimes you do need these particular things. Sometimes we do need the squat rack. Sometimes we do need to put our belt on and our knee sleeves on. And we do need to sometimes take a longer time, because for you, that could be the fun that you have. Mm-hmm. I know for some people, when we had super training going, that was a huge part of their day, was going to super training, seeing the other guys, seeing how fat everybody is, talking shit, talking trash, eating a bunch of junk food and powerlifting.
Yeah, everyone's looking around waiting to see like who brought donuts or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, the other yeah. The super important thing though is like dude, you have to try it. Right? I was exposed to rope flow so many times and I just overlooked it, didn't understand it, didn't want anything to do with it, didn't care. And then I saw Nsima doing it in the gym here. I'm like, okay, dude, let me give it a shot. And I just instantly was like, oh my gosh, that's why Nsima is liking it so much. But you got to give it a shot.
I got to intervene here too, because Nsima has a way of making everything look amazing.
That is true.
And so people are thinking in their head, what pops up in their head, like the little thought bubble that they have, is different than the actual real bubble that's going to happen.
Yeah.
They think they're going to do this and they're going to look like Nsima and they're going to be flowing all perfectly and it's going to look nice.
Yeah, in my head, I saw me on Nsima's body. Like I was jacked. And I was looking good with the rope.
All wet, probably.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. I don't know how the water got there, but yeah, maybe it was sweat. Raining, doing it out in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably
something crazy was happening.
Y'all remember seeing me a few years back doing it and I looked shitty though, too.
No.
No, come on now.
No, I love...
I don't remember.
Like sometimes people ask me, they'll be like, what is it Nsima? Like, what is he wearing? Like, what's the... I'm like... I'll buy it for you and I'll fucking send it to you. And I want you to take a picture. You're going to look like shit. You're not going to look like him.
Yeah, dude.
It's like, wow, it looks really nice. I'm like, you don't understand. Just don't even bother.
Yeah.
It ain't going to work.
But I mean, again, going back to the rope flow real quick, when you do you put 2 and 2 together, we'll say, and you get a couple of good flows going, then all of a sudden it becomes like even more fun. And then that's when like the Gamify thing kind of comes into play, because you're like, oh wait, can I do that thing? You know, whatever, like the guy that came in, he was a really good kettlebell rope flow guy.
And he was throwing the rope everywhere.
And he was throwing the rope.
CJ.
Yeah.
Kabliska.
So then I'm like, there's no way I could let go of the rope. And then he's like, oh, you got to do it like this. And I was like, oh shit, I got it.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to do it since, because I don't know what I did. I messed it up. I can't remember. Damn. But it's sort of like skating. That's why you love skating, because you hit, I did a kickflip. It's like, oh, dude, now can I do a kickflip onto something or whatever, or off of something? And it becomes fun and it becomes a game.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that with any kind of movement practice, that is freaking gold. But you're probably not going to discover it unless you actually try the damn thing. And so that's like what I wanted to emphasize is I was around it like every day. And I just was like, nah, it's not for me. Like, it's not my thing. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is like the only thing. Like, this is the only thing I want to do now. It's crazy. Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Do you guys get into a situation where sometimes you do group exercise? Like, I know that you do jujitsu, but do either one of you guys sometimes, whether you're at jujitsu or even just at your house or, being members of your family and having different friends and stuff, do you guys kind of find yourself sometimes having like little events where you're exercising or doing something all together type thing?
With my mom and sister sometimes when I'm over there. Me and my girl will sometimes do some stuff, but not in like big groups. Mm-hmm. Not generally big groups.
Yeah. I'll get with like some of the guys that I roll with. Like, we'll just be like, hey, it's going to be at, this house. See you there at 6 a.m. or whatever. And we just show up. And then it's usually like nobody's really pushing each other to like, to like the edge of death, but like we're all there for each other and, we're pushing. But probably the best workout I've had, for sure, all year outside of like jujitsu was, with my wife, Stephanie. I think I told her, I'm like, hey, 11 a.m., get ready. We're going to go to the garage. We'll figure out what to do with our son. Like, we'll figure it out, because that's usually the thing is like, he'll be into something, like, well, he'll be watching TV or like, again, playing on the mats or something for like 30 seconds. And then he's like, oh, what's this? And he like tries to put his finger like in the machine. That's like,
God.
you know what I mean? Like things like that, where
God.
it's like, hey, dude, you can't do that. And then it's like, you know, it just turns into a thing.
Yeah.
But he was like content with like watching like Bluey or something. And we're like, dude, let's just keep going. And we finished like a full on workout for the first time since we've had him together. Right. And so that was like the coolest thing. And so that was one of those situations where I'm like, hey, 11, let's get in the garage, like we're training. And it worked out. And so that was like a really cool thing, because without that, I probably would have had a decent workout, but not as good as like, hey, we're moving, you know, like we don't have time to like check my phone and mess around. We got to get to the next set because we don't know how long this ticking time bomb, you know what I mean? Like there's a chance that thing's going to explode and we're going to have to shut down this whole thing. So yeah, it was very important.
I think just whenever you can, it can be very infrequent. It doesn't really matter how frequent it is. But wherever you can, try to just invite somebody else in on something.
Yeah.
Makes it more fun, makes it more exciting. With my family, typically we get together for a bunch of different things, you know, Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Thanksgiving, we always all exercise together, but it's usually just one time. You know, we're together for 3 or 4 days a lot of times. And I just ask everybody, say, hey, let's all commit. We'll do one thing. It's not even be hard. Like, you can do it whatever way that you want to do it. Let's all just commit to this one thing. And I think this year we did, we just walked this loop that has like quite a bit of hills, and I think everybody had a weighted vest on. And that was it. Like, it wasn't like we were trying to do anything crazy or heroic, but it was fun. It was fun. And then also, you know, my wife and I, if we go on vacation together, we try to exercise together, or at least make some sort of pact that like, okay, we're gone for 5 days. Let's work out for 2 or 3, you know, there's things like that, like anywhere that you can kind of figure out ways to, because you're trying to live your life with like a different standard. And you're not trying to necessarily have these crazy expectations for yourself where you're always disappointed that you're not making it, you're not doing it. What I'm suggesting is that you try to set yourself up so that you're so much less likely to fail. I went to Mike O'Tren's house recently, and little Mini O'Tren, they have a wrestling mat in their living room. I don't even remember if there's a TV in there. There's like a couch. There's a couple spots for their dog. There's a wrestling mat, and there's a Christmas tree. Like, this is great. And then Mike talks trash to Titan, and then they fight. And then Titan goes and does something else, and then like they'll reconvene, and they end up like fighting on the wrestling mats and stuff like that here and there. Again, just trying to set stuff up so that you have opportunity for play. You have opportunity. Like they believe that it's important for Titan to have physical attributes, and so that's what they teach in the household. Jason Khalipa, I think every other week I see him like attacking his children. I'm always like, what is this guy doing?
Yep. Fight me.
Yeah. But how cool is that? Like, I think that's, you know, at first I was like, man, what is he doing? I was like, well, that's actually super important. And what a cool bonding moment. I'm sure maybe his kids don't always, you know, Jason has a lot of enthusiasm. Maybe it's not always well received with your kids, but your kids, they do that to you anyway. They do that no matter what you're trying to do with them. And how cool is it to teach them some defense, showing them the importance of physicality. You got Ben Alderman's son is an absolute beast. I forget how old he is now, but that kid is moving some crazy weights, and he has been in a gym, basically almost born in a gym. And he's
tapping grown men now.
Yeah, he's destroying people in jiu-jitsu and everything, and in weightlifting. So it's just really cool. But he grew up in that environment where it was shown to him, this is of value. This is going to be very valuable. And that physical education is super important. David Weck goes as far as to say that physical education is the education. And it definitely is like the start of your education. And it's the start and formation of your brain, is the coordination of your body. That's why we have a central nervous system. That's why we have a brain in the first place, is not necessarily to do all these cool, smart things, but it's just to move. That's what the brain is basically for. And so I mean, I can't stress it enough how important these activities, these movements are. And whatever way you can figure out to kind of get them into your life and into your lifestyle, whether it's you go into a full-on like powerlifting mode, or you bodybuild, or you find a sport that you like and enjoy, I think it's just massively important no matter what.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I want to mention is just a note on frustration with a lot of this stuff, because there's an idea. I think we all kind of want to start something and then almost be a natural at it, but most of us aren't a natural at it. And then when we find out that we're not a natural at it, we quit. It's like you come up on a little bit of resistance. And you're like, shit, that's not for me, right? Reinterpret that and start to try to become friends with frustration. So you're doing rope flow and the rope's continuously hitting you in the face, or you can't get the difference between the underhand and the overhand. Try to laugh at it. Laugh at how silly you look. And when the rope hits you in the face multiple times, laugh at it. Because even now when the rope hits me in the face, I have a tendency to just laugh. Because I know that, okay, I'm going to figure this out. It's a good thing. Because you'll notice, like, you start doing it more, you'll figure it out. And then it's on to the next thing. Same thing with the jump rope. The jump rope whips you. Laugh at it. It'll be a little bit painful, but just try to build a tendency to become friends with the feeling of frustration. Because when you do that with multiple different activities, then you'll find that frustration just doesn't affect you the same way anymore. Like for me, like when it comes to these things, jujitsu, etc., when I run into these things, I don't feel it. It's not negative to me anymore. It's more so like, oh, okay, there's a puzzle there. Like there's something to figure out. And I can figure it out because you figure it out so much up until this point while getting frustrated that you've proven to yourself that you can figure out whatever it is, no matter what type of frustration you get into. So reinterpret frustration to be a positive thing. It's frustrating right now. You'll figure that out. Something else will be frustrating. You'll figure it out. It's just, that's how it is. And that's great. Mm-hmm. That is great.
There's no limits on what you can learn and know. And I think the three of us here, I think we would agree that there's nothing that we can't learn. It might take me a while. Yeah. Like, holy crap, someone trying to teach me a new language, someone trying to teach me to, write in a different language or something, like, holy smokes, like, man, I might need a lot of time. But if I had to learn it, I guess I could. Even learning, even learning complex things is like, if someone could give me the basis of some of it, then maybe over a long period of time, I could start to understand the rest of it. It's the physical part that can sometimes be, there are certain things that I would say are out of reach, but improvement is always there.
Yes.
Can always improve. Like it doesn't really make sense for me to say, I'm going to run faster than Usain Bolt. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's just, that's his body of work. He's the greatest of all time. And for me to try to like adopt sprinting now, it just doesn't make any sense. But I can improve. I can still learn. I can still grow. I can still get faster. Mm-hmm. And then, is there anybody that can tell me where my top speed would top out? Like, no, like we don't really know. I mean, someone can guess and they can say, well, I think you could run 11-second, 100 meter or something, or 12-second 100 meter. They might say like, that's about when your luck is probably going to run out. A good coach, right? But they don't really know. Like, what if I dedicated and just stacked everything and put everything I had into that? We don't really know what could happen. And so, these things they're fun to, some of these things are fun for us, but some of the things are also frustrating because you're trying to learn them. And if we can just kind of use the word play, I think it puts you in a safe zone where it feels easier to manage and it feels easier to learn. And then once you kind of learn some of these skill sets, you can have things that sound complicated and things that sound hard or difficult make for great workouts that make you feel amazing. Mm-hmm. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.